Welcome back to the Gun Collective podcast. My name is Jon Patton. Boys and girls, we have got an excellent guest. But before we get into that, we of course have to shout out our sponsors. We've got blackoutcoffee.com/TGC and use our code TGC. You get yourself a little discount. And if you buy our Tenacity blend, you get yourself the best coffee to start your day. You get a little boost of caffeine, low acidity. It's delicious. Go do it. They've also got tea and hot cocoa. It's getting chilly here in the Northeast. And I know hot cocoa season, Han Solo season is right around the corner for you ladies. Definitely go check out blackoutcoffee.com/TGC. Also go to Vertex, VERTX.com, and use our code TGC there. Get yourself an EDC bag, some apparel, maybe some stackable storage for your vehicle. I use it all the time. Every time I leave the house, I've got at least one Vertex bag with me. You will not regret doing this. I promise you that. Use code TGC, get yourself a little discount. I've got Mike Mihalski, owner of Sons of Liberty Gunworks. You guys see me wearing the shirts from time to time on the news, and I am so freaking excited. Mike, how are you, buddy?
I'm doing good, man. Thanks for having me on.
I'm really glad that we're getting to chat because I have endless questions for you about all of the things. Like, you are a very unique personality. You strike me as somebody that is no BS to the core, and I respect the hell out of that. But I guess my first question to you is, where the hell did Sons of Liberty come from? Because it seemed like you came out of effing nowhere a few years back. Just this, this premium AR company, just bam, we're here and we're one of the best. Where did this come from?
Yeah, what's the saying? It takes 15 years to become an overnight success.
Yeah, no shit, right?
So Sons of Liberty is in its 9th year. In November, we'll be 9 years old. This thing started in my garage, actually. And then Kyle, my business partner, we had a mutual friend, and he introduced us, and we got together. But I was building guns in my garage.
Oh wow!
And then,
okay.
And then I got a visit from the ATF, actually, and I got my pee-pee slapped, and they said, "This is your warning. You better go get an FFL," because it's a very vague definition of like what it means to be in the business of, right? It's a very gray area, and I didn't think I had done anything super egregious, but it was, I got on somebody's radar. And they said, you need to go get an FFL. And around the same time, I met my partner, Kyle, and Sons Liberty was born.
So what was he like, so you're in your garage. Where did this, when I look at your company, I see a sort of quote unquote, for lack of a better term, forgive me for this, a go to war gun. This is the image that you have built around the brand. Was that always the sort of guiding light for you?
Yeah, absolutely. I wanted to build endurance rifles, like, really hard use endurance rifles. And at the time we were standing up, there were, I have to give credit to like the people that inspired me. John Noveski, I think, was way ahead of his time. Reed Knight, Marty Daniel, Paul Buffoni from BCM. And then, all of these guys, what they did was they legitimately improved on the 6920. They took the 6920, which at the time I thought was like the yardstick of guns, right? That mean every gun was either better or worse than a Colt 6920.
Sure.
And then what you saw was them starting to make advancements for ergonomics, different, rail systems, the advent or the adoption of the mid-gas system. But you never went backwards, right? Materials, heavy buffers, the right gas ports. We built guns from day one, anticipating that they were going to be suppressed. And when you start looking at guns like that, and you're not planning for the first 500 rounds, you're planning for the next 20,000 rounds, right? That's how we build stuff. Back then, guns really weren't built like that. With the exception of the companies I just mentioned, suppressor ownership wasn't super popular at the time, right? So like, guns didn't, the gas ports were all over the place, and buffers and like the materials. When you start adding a suppressor to a poorly made gun, you're going to exasperate a lot of problems. Or you're going to exasperate any imperfection in the gun. If you add a suppressor to a well-made gun, it actually almost enhances the performance. So anyway, our whole philosophy though always was a no shit, hard use gun, endurance weapon. And then where I thought I could really make a difference is in that end user supports, where like buy a Sons of Liberty rifle. If you can break this fucking thing, we will just fix it. We'll replace it. We'll do whatever it is you need to do. And I wanted to like almost build a culture around that. And it wasn't just a product; it was also a belief in an idea. And that was, very. You have to remember the time we stood the company up. This was in the wake of Sandy Hook. After that, there was a legitimate scare for gun rights. That's also when you started seeing suppression of free speech. That's when you started seeing Operation Choke Point come into play with banking institutions, stuff like that. So we wanted to make a company that not only produced a good product, but had a message, that we took a stand. This is what we believe. And it wasn't necessarily political. It was just constitutional purism.
Wow. I don't think it's a very common occurrence to hear the owner of a firearms company actually taking any stance. I think largely they just avoid politics altogether. And here you are saying I'm a constitutionalist. I'm a purist here. That's really interesting. Why do you think that's been so important to you as a human being while leading the charge with this company?
Well, this company gave us a bit of a vehicle, a bit of a megaphone and a platform to get involved. And as we grew, I mean, we started having political candidates want, endorsements, or we started getting more involved in the legislative side, the lobbying side, funding litigation. We had a bill written here in Texas. We actually, we've done a lot in that arena.
Right.
I think the reason why you there's this deafening silence from the industry is that once you reach a certain level, or perhaps once you're courting certain clients, being sterile is a business move. I mean, perhaps, and I mean, don't get me wrong. I get it. To me, I also own a calculator though. And if you were to look, there's 1 billion guns in circulation on the planet. Half of them are owned here in the United States by the commercial market. There is no military contract larger than the American citizen. There is no demographic of gun buying people.
I'm stealing that, by the way. What you just said is very powerful to my mind. There is no contract larger than the American buying public. Like, wow. I've never heard it said that simply.
Well, we look at the math. I mean, on Black Friday of last year, one shopping day of 1 year, more guns were sold than the Marine Corps has in inventory.
I
don't think people understand the scale or the scope of what this really looks like.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that I think we have created this sort of enthusiast culture because there's a lot of onesie twosie types out there,
sure.
But this enthusiast culture of not just like sort of preparedness, but also I want to train and I want to push, which is where your clientele seem to live. I think it's really interesting seeing that grow and expand, and seeing influencer culture push that as well. So what I said at the beginning of the show was that you to me just popped up out of nowhere. And I want to know, was there like sort of a turning point where you were like, oh shit, we have absolutely sort of launched into a new stratosphere? Because it was, I want to say, it's 23. It was pre-pandemic, probably 2018, 2019 is when I first heard the name of your company. What was going on in your life at that time? Like what was happening?
Man, so we had no marketing budget. We didn't have any type of like the way Sons of Liberty got started is kind of funny. There was a specific component that I wanted to have machined, and when I contacted the company that I wanted to machine it for me, they told me the minimum order was 500 pieces. And you have to remember, I mean, I sold my car to come up with a couple of grand to start this, and then Kyle, my business partner, had a little like basement in a lumber yard that he was willing to let us use, and he put a couple bucks. So the guy that I wanted to machine this part, I hounded him every day for like a month until he finally gave in. And he's like, look, dude, if you promise to not call me anymore, if you just submit your order through email, how many would you want? Because I couldn't even come close to afford the minimum order, right? And I told him I need 10. And now we order thousands and thousands of that component per month, right? So I mean, like, it paid off for him, but that's how we started. So if that's how we started, with me basically like hounding some poor bastard into submission to machine something for me, you can imagine what our marketing budget was. It was nothing. It was
Nothing.
a couple of guys,
Non-existent.
non-existent. It was a couple of guys on a cell phone, but I had a really good way of explaining the mechanics of the gun, why we did things this way, why it made sense. And I think people can pick up on authenticity. I'm not reading some fucking brochure. I'm actually telling you why we did it this way. And that kind of resonated, and we grew through word of mouth, which is the biggest compliment, right? The biggest compliment in the world is whenever, like, pretty serious shooters recommend you to their friends, and then this thing starts. And then, of course, I think our message resonated with people, and it just kind of, it felt like a snowball. There's momentum. It just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and then now we're on the radar.
You are absolutely on the radar. You've got a signature model with arguably the most influential content creator in the space right now, Mike Jones, Mr. Garand Thumb. How did that come to be?
Dude, Mike's a really great guy. I mean, like,
I agree.
Yeah, all joking aside, Mike is one of the most genuine and sincere dudes in this space. Like, he actually believes in what he's doing. He speaks out on things, and he has his own, I guess, humor. And I would not consider him silent on the issues. Okay, and
no, that is not something he's all about. No, he's not quiet.
No, he's really not, and he's a very sincere guy. Well, what we had, obviously met online, and then he had to come to Texas, to San Antonio, for training whenever he was, still active in the military, and so he had to spend like a month or two down in San Antonio, and he spent a lot of time at the shop. We were, housing a lot of equipment and stuff that he was using, and we would, he would use some of our stuff, and we just got a chance to go shoot a lot at the range together and hang out quite a bit at the shop. And you got to see what we did, and we became pretty good friends. And I mean, I would consider Mike, like, not just an internet friend. I mean, he's a friend in real life. He's a good guy.
Sure. Yeah. So at some point you were just like, hey, we got to put something together with your name attached. Is that basically how it came to be?
Well, there's not many gun companies that build performance rifles like we do, right? So we legitimately build like hardcore endurance performance rifles that can exceed any standardized metric out there, right? Not many companies that do that also have a sense of humor.
Ain't that the damn truth? Oh my gosh, ain't that the truth?
So, like, there are companies out there that build good rifles, but they don't necessarily have the same sense of humor, or they certainly can't do it publicly. So when Mike Jones has a Task Force 69 signature gun where he's chasing Ron Jeremy through space and time, and Macaulay Culkin, and he's taking out Ron Jeremy, you have to have the right sense of humor to partner up on that.
That's fair. That's fair. So you took the company from your garage. Like, how many different models are you producing currently?
I mean, quite a bit. That was the thing. We wanted a menu for almost every type of shooter. So I mean, we have a legacy rifle that is bare bones. Now the engine is ours. I mean, barrels, gas ports, bolt carriers, buffer weight, springs, small part. I mean, the way we build a gun, but it basically is stripped down to like the bare minimum. And for an entry level gun, if somebody is on a budget but they still want a hard use defensive rifle, we have that. And then it graduates from there to where, like our XO3 rifle, if you want a free float full length handguard on there, but you're not necessarily running lasers or enablers, or you're not really, like shooting real hard off of barricades and tripods and stuff, then the XO3, if you just want to mount a flashlight and a sling, that's a damn good rifle. And then you graduate up again to like the M89 rifle, where that's a true combative rifle. I mean, if we have objective data on its deflection testing, and I'm pretty sure it's the strongest rail on the market.
Wow.
Not just for lasers and stuff, but I mean also for loading into. There's a lot of shift whenever you start loading into barricades and bipods and stuff, and that thing it's just a hammer.
So you said what was the phrase you used? It's you said endurance rifle, but what do you refer to the M89 as? Like just this
I say it's a combative rifle, and the
Combative,
reason,
that was the word. Okay.
yeah, I mean,
So what
that rifle.
qualifies it for
Go
that?
ahead.
Like what's your qualification to say this is a combative rifle? I
I
want
mean,
the audience to understand where you're at.
I mean that rifle's built for, suppressed use. We have, we've thought out corrosion resistance. I mean, actual. I'm not talking about like just some shit on a brochure. I'm saying like if you were to subject that thing to like destructive salt, spray, what it would stand up to. The fact that you could beat something to death with that gun. I mean, you just could. The
Wow.
way it's overbuilt in every way. I think one of the weakest parts on an M4 is where the receiver extension marries the receiver. I mean, you've materially beefed that area up. Again, that rail, you're either going to use a steel or a titanium barrel nut, right? I
Right.
mean, you're not using aluminum. The extrusion's very heavy. The way we design that rail is legitimately to maximize real estate on there for if you're putting inline thermals, if you're putting ingalls, or if you're putting uh, like your B. Myers, malls and stuff like that. I mean, like the rail is built as if that rifle is going to be used for fighting at night, fighting from, it's a tough gun.
What do you think is the thing that kind of solidified you in that space? Was there like a certain model when you released the M89? Like what was the, hey, we're here and we make this rock solid rifle? What was that thing that sort of let you know that this was solidified?
I mean, a lot of it is, end user feedback, right? So I mean, you like, let's say, you don't know what you don't know, right?
Sure. Right.
So when as we evolved as a company, as our rifles evolved, and you're getting feedback from some of the most sophisticated shooters in the world. You're getting feedback from pretty high speed dudes. You're getting feedback from world class competitors, and they're telling you, "Hey, this feature would help a lot," or if this was right here, or if we could eliminate this, or if we could improve that, and then so. It's not just a reliable gun. Now you're talking about shootability, right? So like now the gun, you're focusing on impulse, you're focusing on balance, you're focusing on weight, how the gun swings. And then when you start adding again, like corrosion or all of the other challenges, making a reliable gun is one thing. Making a reliable, accurate, shootable gun that can survive any environment and operate in any condition, that's where it gets challenging. That's not many rifles on the market can legitimately do that.
What would you say? Give me some examples of rifles that can do that.
I think your Knight's rifle is a solid gun. I think Geisley puts out some good stuff. Uh, Sometimes I hate to give them credit, but I have to. I think Daniel Defense is a performance brand.
Okay.
I take that back. I shouldn't say I hate to give them credit. They've kind of poked fun at me a couple of times, so it's like, but they do make a good rifle. BCM, legitimate rifle. I think Psionics is one of those companies that's underrated. I think Centurion, Monty over at Centurion's a hell of a good dude. They make good rifles.
And these are all what
LMT.
these names you're rattling off are all like ultra premium type rifles. Where does yours land price wise? Because I want the audience to understand this.
I mean, I, we're we're probably somewhere in the middle or towards the bottom in terms of price. I mean, in that particular
What's the
list,
price on your entry level gun right now?
I mean, I think it's under $1,000 or it's $1,000.
So somebody can get into one of your guns for under $1,000 or right around $1,000.
So right now we're discontinuing our M76 line. Okay, our entire M76 line. That was our wedge like handguard,
Okay.
and we're allowing our dealers to completely blow those out. There is no map. There's nothing like, clear that
Wow.
old stuff. So right now, if people wanted, and that rifle was our flagship gun for 2 or 3 years, and it has the A5 system. Again, it's built to be suppressed. It's a hell of a tough rifle, and we know we're evolving towards the M89 and L89 rail, and that system. There's some other little things in there that we've done, but those rifles are right now incredibly affordable, and you're gonna have a really hard time beating it in performance.
I
We
can't think of $1,000 gun that I would go to war with, so to speak. I can't think of another company that I don't, Daniel Defense is the sort of the largest in that space, I would argue.
yeah,
And
sure they are.
I don't think you can get one of their ARs under $1,000. I don't think there's a chance you'd get one.
No,
So
and I don't
to
think
know
they
that
do.
yours might be on this sort of blowout that you're doing, and by the time this comes out, they might all be gone. We don't
That's
know.
that's possible, and I don't think they do some of the entry level stuff, at least not commercially. We do, but I mean, you have to remember whenever I say this, whenever I say like these are the performance standards that we, and I'm not afraid to go head to head against any manufacturer in the world. I'm not saying this like from some kind of hubris or whatever. No, no. We submit our rifles for down selects or for contracts where they're subjected to extremely destructive firing schedules, and we put our guns against these guys all the time. And I have a ton of respect for all these companies, but I we put our rifle in there because we know, well, we can exceed that.
Well, I think that's pretty impressive, honestly. I had the opportunity, the first time I was ever able to shoot one of your rifles was about this time last year in Colorado at an event called Rocky Mountain Range Day. And immediately you can tell that it's built like a brick shithouse. It's not like heavy. It's one of those guns that just feels solid. It's like when you get into, say, a high end like German car and you shut the door and you feel like you're contained in something.
Mhm.
That's what shooting your rifle feels like to me. That's what the experience is like. It doesn't feel, there's not like this is kind of loose or this could be better. It feels just like this is what the platform is supposed to be.
Yeah, and that's part of the evolution of us as a brand and as a company. I mean, you want to give the end user all you got, and if you can hold a little bit tighter tolerances, if you can, we oversize those lugs in the upper just a little bit so it fits snugger into that lower receiver. We undersize the threaded bore so whenever you seat that barrel, it has to be press fit into the upper. There's no slop, there's no movement. Holding those tolerances has kind of pigeonholed us a little bit. And believe it or not, it has probably slowed our growth to some degree because it's very hard to replicate that over super large numbers.
Right.
So like,
You got tooling wear and all that kind of stuff
yeah,
across.
if you're replacing tooling at the right time and you're actually holding those kinds of tolerances, not just on the machining side, but on the finishing, like how this stuff is finished, and then of course, prep and etching for anno. The kind of we use bright dip anno, which there's only like one or two anno houses in the country that will even touch that shit. But when you see the gun when it's done, it's beautiful. It's a beautiful rifle, and not just that. The anno is very tough. It's heavy.
Is it like a thicker anodization? Like I sort of understand that it's a chemical bonding process of the finish to the actual material, but I'm not sure I understand how it would get tougher. Is it like hardening the outer edge?
Yeah, it adds a you're protecting that substrate material under there, and there is a defined mill thickness for what it should be, and not I'll tell you right now that not all receivers are created equal. I mean, they're just not. Now, I mean, if I was the camp armorer for The Walking Dead, like that's not the shit that would keep me up at night. But if you have a choice, you're not just trying to get the gun to run for the zombie apocalypse. If you have a choice, get the one that someone put a little bit more thought into, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I've got a few behind me that you guys can probably see on this video, and I've seen every part of the spectrum of rifles. I've seen it all. And you can tell when a gun is built properly.
Yeah.
There are very few companies that I think out of the guns that are behind me, I can probably point to maybe 2 to 3 that I would be like, I would fight with that gun. That's not, it's just not a thing. It's not a thing. There's some flaw in most major manufacturers ARs in some way. And that's not a slight on them. It's just part of what it is. There's something in my mind that could always be improved. And I think you've done a really interesting job pushing. The other thing that I think you mentioned this about sense of humor. I don't remember what the box said, but I remember bursting out laughing at something you put on or in one of your your packaging. Do you remember what that was?
I mean, every lower receiver or every rifle ships in the box. Obviously, it's branded Sons Liberty. But when you open it, it's quote, "This displeases the crown."
That, yes. That's the kind of company that I want to be working with in this industry. I want these, like, we have been fighting for so long, and the industry as a whole has just taken it from the crown for so long, and it's really disappointing to have to publicly shame companies for not, like, I have publicly repeatedly shamed the NSSF for being the so-called leader of the firearms industry, yet being fucking quiet about things like pistol braces. It took like 6 months of me prodding them to get them to say something, and here you come as arguably a smaller brand waving the flag of freedom, and that is amazing to me. It's jarring. It shouldn't be, but it is. Where does that part of that come into play? Like, was that always part of the visions? Like, we are going to be this way?
So I guess it could be said that, and this is true for better or for worse. I've probably always had a problem with authority, and when I was younger, I think that manifested in not so productive ways. And now that I'm a little bit older, I have, we've built this company that I believe is a mission bigger than me, bigger than a product. I've kind of channeled some of that problem with authority, if you will, into these things. And I gotta tell you, man, I think it's getting much worse. Yes, we've had some major victories on the litigation side. There's been some really landmark big cases at FPC, GOA, 2AF. I mean, there's guys out there doing good work, but I believe that we have yet to see the biggest attacks coming, and it's going to come not from the government. I don't think it's going to come from private industry. It's going to come from,
Really?
That's my biggest fear. I think gun control is less popular politically than it's ever been. I mean, if you look at the last couple of years, right? It's social unrest, COVID. You had delayed, the defund the police kind of stuff. You had all this other stuff, right? You have cities that are having these bail reform issues where crime is going through the roof, and people that were never super interested in owning a gun have gone out and bought guns. The demographic of gun ownership is forever different than it was just 5 years ago.
Yeah.
I think people are less enthusiastic to oppose us on the voting side. Okay. Now, the problem is that you have banking institutions, insurance companies, social media companies, some of the most powerful private entities to ever exist. They don't like you. Guns are an equalizer. If you took a billionaire and a bum and you locked them both in a room and handed them each a pistol, okay, the probability of predicting the success of that outcome becomes a lot less lopsided. I don't think that very powerful people want the peasants armed. So I don't.
I just want to see this bum versus a billionaire. I want to see this in real life.
No, me too. That's, I mean, welcome to the
Yeah.
arena, right?
Yeah.
But again, though, to me, the stuff that I pay attention to is at some point you may have a real problem as a gun company or as a customer trying to purchase a gun, transacting. What happens if we do go to some kind of digital centralized currency,
Oh God.
or what happens when American Express or Visa stops processing that stuff, or right now, currently, we can't bank at Chase, Bank of America, Wells Fargo. I mean, any of the bigger institutions, they will not touch us.
Yeah, they don't want it.
They don't want it. Well, at some point, what happens whenever they start messing with your ability to transact? That's how I think the biggest push is going to come. And I'm not sure. I'm not sure what to do there.
I don't know what you could do. Like, what's reasonably, going to war with a bank is like a foreign concept. Because like essentially, if you think about it this way, if you start to think about our history, the Catholic Church at one point controlled a ton of money, and
Currency,
people had to go to like all of these, like the Church. What is the Church of England or somebody? I
well, it
don't
was
remember who was in charge.
like the Knights Templar. Like if you look at the original Knights Templar, I mean, they were the original bank. That was like the original checkbook. You could deposit your money with like the Templars in one country, and then basically withdraw your money from the Templars in
I
a
didn't know
different
that.
country. That was again, this is an incredible amount of power when you control currency.
Right.
But you ask what can be done about that, and I'm not trying to get political, but
No, have
elections
fun. Have fun. Get political. Go ahead.
but elections do have consequences. So whenever you're appointing somebody to the head of the Federal Trade Commission, or you're appointing somebody to the head of a lot of these regulatory bodies, the attitude trickles down. And so I can tell you that there were things that were relaxed under the last administration that have now stopped being as relaxed. And I think depending on how the trend goes, uh it's not so much like a new law is being passed. There's a ton of consequences uh from these regulatory bodies, and it's not just the ATF. I'm talking about there's a lot of your life is affected by it. I call it the fourth branch of government. Unelected bureaucrats that are in these regulatory agencies that can do quite a bit of damage and make quite a bit of change.
So can you give us an example of something that you think people don't realize could happen with one of these regulatory bodies?
Well, there's right now there's really no recourse. I mean, a lot of my libertarian friends, I think, kind of again, I'm trying not to. I don't mind getting political, but I don't want to get partisan.
Okay,
Um,
that's fair.
right. But I remember having an argument with my buddies that were libertarians saying that it was Facebook and Instagram's First Amendment right to suppress speech. From that they're a private company, or they're not a government controlled entity, and that
Okay.
it was within their right to take down pages or to like suppress our ability to communicate, right? But then you look back now, knowing what we know now, that this was not like the ideological decision of Mark Zuckerberg. This was the FBI and the
Yeah, this is the
DOJ.
United States government doing this.
This is the United States government going to these entities and applying whatever kind of pressure or leverage they have in order to affect some kind of outcome. That is no longer a First Amendment voluntary choice of Mark Zuckerberg. That is the definition of a First Amendment problem. Now imagine that same scenario in banking, in insurance, in a lot of different arenas. And I believe at that level of influence, pressure, and leverage is happening.
I mean, we've seen some really interesting stuff with the sort of inclusion of social media, the access that people have to others. I mean, there's stories all over the place of people being fired or not even getting jobs just because of something they have on their own personal social media. And that's fascinating to me. It's like you are no longer allowed to have an opinion. And I want to throw a phrase at you that I heard that I think is really interesting. And stick with me; it's going to take a second to explain this. So I was listening to a podcast. It was a Canadian guy talking to a comedian named the comedian is Theo Von. The Canadian
I
guy's
love
name,
that guy. I love
yeah,
Theo.
Theo's amazing, right?
Yeah.
The guy's name was John Vervaeke, and he was talking about it was a much longer discussion, so you'll have to go listen to it. It's about the crisis of meaning. Go listen to it. And they started getting into the topic of politics and the division that we currently face. And I have been mentally thinking along this line, so it really made a lot of sense to me. The term was confirmation porn. And the idea with confirmation porn is that we, on both sides of the aisle, as we all say, on both sides of the aisle, the idea is not to progress and get better as a society. The idea is to beat the other side. And all of this social media stuff that we see going back and forth is just an effort to dunk on the other side and win and get that confirmation that we are right. And it's just this cycle of I have to win, I have to win. We will never get better as a society. What do you think that is ever, are we ever going to get to a spot where we can see our elected officials work together again instead of trying to control one another?
So I think that what you're talking about is absolutely by design. Though, I mean, if I still have friends from other segments of my life. I'm into cars, I'm into watches, I'm into travel, I'm into stuff. So I mean, I still have friends from other demographics politically, right? That when we talk, if you were to trade phones with one of those folks for a day, it would blow your mind. Like their news feed is entirely different.
Completely different.
The ding, whenever you get a notification like a news story, the stories that they're notified about are completely different. So we live in a hyper echo chamber, whether it's voluntarily or not. Okay, I mean, I'm sure that that through the data they collect from people, and they can kind of get a pretty good sense of what it is that you want to see. And the goal is to keep your eyes on a certain platform, right? So I mean, I'm sure that feeding you things that would keep your interest is within their interest.
Sure. Yeah, of course. They want to keep you on the platform longer.
Right. But it is we live in a very extreme echo chamber, and yes, it is that confirmation porn. And yeah, I agree. I mean, there's been like this abandonment of nuance. Like
Yes.
there every topic that you discuss, I don't care what the topic, pick any hotbed wedge issue out of a hat, and that conversation is complex. It's highly complex. I mean, very rarely, I mean, yes, I believe the Second Amendment is an absolute. So okay, but if you were to talk about, a border issue or something, there are ethical debates on how that thing should be handled and enforced. And in a conversation between two reasonable people, the conversation is nuanced. Unfortunately, if you and I were to try to sit down and talk to the average person, or perhaps they feel the same way about us, we're watching two different movies. We're speaking two completely different languages, and there is no more common ground from which to build the rest of the argument. I would say that even the manipulation of language. I mean, there are words that mean something completely different than what they used to. And if you can't even establish a starting point for maybe a very basic level of facts or a very basic definition of certain terms, how can you stack a conversation and develop it whenever like the actual words or
Right.
the most, like I said, the most crystalline form of a starting point is so different. And I think that's by design. Okay. I mean, I don't think we accidentally got here.
Do you subscribe to the sort of world elites making this happen, or is it like more localized in your mind?
No, I absolutely believe that there are people behind the curtain, pulling the levers. And I say this because I've been involved in politics. Okay, a lot of times if you see a senator or a congressman make a tweet, and it's fairly uh it sounds like something on behalf of like the second community. There's a chance I might have wrote that. Okay,
That doesn't
I'm not gonna
surprise me one bit.
I'm not gonna name names or whatever. I mean, I do consult and advise on some of the stuff. Um, I do believe that the political class is not the elite. The people above the political class,
Right.
they're kind of insulated from politics. I don't think at a certain level. Okay, let me be clear when I say this. You and I look at things through probably a very American lens. Okay, like my sense of justice or fairness, or like just my worldview is from an American lens. when you're talking about the real money, you're talking about a very global perspective.
Mm.
American values, that doesn't mean a whole lot in China or Eastern Europe or Central and South America or wherever. This lens is unique to us. And so I think once those guys that are very far elevated above the day-to-day kinds of stuff that you and I think about, that perspective is quite different. So, um, and the kind of influence that these people have is phenomenal. I mean, this isn't a conspiracy theory that BlackRock and Vanguard and some of these entities, that they have trillions of dollars under management in every single industry you can imagine. To me, it's not a big surprise that certain people profit quite a bit when there's a pandemic. It's not a surprise to me that certain people profit quite a bit when there's a global armed conflict. These people happen to have their hands in both pies. Like, the stuff that I'm saying is that amazingly is the stuff that Russell Brand is saying. I mean, would you ever have thought Russell Brand would be like the voice of like the centrist kind of, skeptic? Would you ever think that he was that guy?
When he started saying that sort of stuff on a larger scale, I'm like, wait, is this the same Russell Brand? Like, what happened? Because in my mind, he was, this sort of quote unquote leftist celebrity type. And then he's saying things that are pretty well reasoned. And just this week, this probably won't come out for a little while, but just this week, they're accusing him of rape. And what's interesting is YouTube. He's got a big YouTube following, apparently.
Huge.
YouTube cut off his ad revenue based on speculative claims. Like, he has not been charged with this crime, and YouTube shut off his ad revenue because of that. Yeah, that's exactly the kind of shit that you're talking about, right?
That's exactly what I'm talking about. They cut off they needed an excuse to silence that guy. I mean, but I've seen it a lot. And now, don't get me wrong, I don't know the facts of his case. For all I know,
yeah, he could be guilty. We don't know.
He could very much be guilty. I will say that at this point, from at least my observations, I'm a little bit skeptical. And before I pass any kind of judgment on anybody, I would like to see some kind of evidence. And again, not to get political, and I'm trying not to get partisan, but like, if you paid attention to like the Judge Kavanaugh confirmation. Now, for me as a Second Amendment advocate and as somebody who knew the kind of lawsuits that were waiting in the pipeline to take a majority in the Supreme Court, okay, and you're watching that, I don't care if you liked him or not, but if you're a Second Amendment guy, you're going to want to stack the deck in your favor a little bit. Watching that whole confirmation, do you remember that? Do you remember the
sure
Kavanaugh?
It was like a fucking circus.
It was a fucking circus, and it was the most. You had this lady, and again, I'm diminish people's. If someone's a victim of some kind of heinous crime, that's not. But in this particular case, there was not a single shred of corroborating evidence that could have ever have put them in the same fucking room at the same time.
Well, he was drunk that one time in college. Like, but this is what we're basing this on.
But even her star witness, which was like a mutual friend of theirs, could not confirm that they were ever even in the same room at the same time, even at like a social event. Like, again, not wanting to go down that path, but I look at the level of accusations, the what they're willing to do, at what they're willing to, they're not afraid to destroy somebody's life, reputation, livelihood, career, because they challenge a certain political ideology. I don't have you ever seen it that was it like that 10 years ago and I just didn't notice? Was it like that 20 years ago and I just didn't pay attention?
So I'm 39 years old, and when I was a kid, politicians had respect in large part.
There was some decorum, yeah, sure.
Yeah, there were levels of standards, and society as a whole was not as accusatory as we are now. It's not finger pointing. It was not like that. And now what seems to be happening is it's all centered around this weird thing that we've fallen into of, I am right, you are wrong, that is it. There is no nuance. There is no beyond. It is our own perspective is the perspective, and it's fucking dangerous to have politicians adopting this social media type approach to their jobs. You know, you look at the discourse between somebody like AOC and I'm secretly pushing for a fist fight between her and Lauren Boebert, by the way. So if you want to get in on that, I'm just subtly just every once in a while I'm going to start posting about it because I want them to fight and it'd be very funny. But you see this mentality and this method of speech where it's not about I respect my job and here's why I say what I say for my people. It is I am trying to beat you verbally so that you look bad on social media. That's it.
Yeah, and that's because
like, what?
But that's because of how the structured reward system works. I mean, the
dopamine addiction is crazy, right?
Dopamine addiction, of course, and then also again, like you said, that the confirmation porn. The problem is that the people that are in the center, I don't think get enough. They don't get handed the microphone enough, right? So you're
never.
The people on the furthest ends of the political spectrum are usually the ones that get the most attention. They're somehow rewarded the most by the collective camps, and then you end up having this extremely polarized. So you know what's crazy, and this might piss some of my friends off for me even mentioning this, but have you listened to like RFK Jr. talk?
No, I intentionally have not listened to a damn thing he said. Well, tell me about it.
Well, I got to tell you, I think the guy from at least and again, I've never met the guy, you know, I don't know him. From what I've seen, you know, he seems like he is certainly at least a better human being than Biden. Okay.
that's a low fucking bar.
That's a pretty low fucking bar. But what I'm saying is though, like he kind of has that centrist position. I don't agree politically with many of his positions. And you know, he's not the person that I would personally vote for. But if that was what the political discourse looked like, I think if that was what the political discourse looked like, and even if you did not vote for him, which I would not, that's a healthier place for the country to be than whatever the fuck it is that we have now. You have some strange things, and I mean, anyways, it's a weird time to be alive, man. It really is. Dude, let me ask you, have you been paying attention? Did you watch this debacle in New Mexico where they wanted to suspend did you watch this?
So she said she wanted to suspend basically
she did suspend it. I mean, she did issue the order. Now, nobody
in her mind, like on paper, she did, but everybody was like, "Yeah, fuck you." Now, so like the thing that I thought the balls on this lady when she said she didn't need, I believe it was police to give her a lesson in constitutionality or some shit. I'm like, lady, you are so far out of your depth, you have no idea.
Well, I believe, and I'm not a conspiracy theorist, and I'm done apologizing for my conspiracy theorist beliefs because a lot of them have come pretty fucking true. Okay,
they're probably just like normal beliefs from 10 years ago.
But I believe that it was a dry run. I honestly believe
absolutely.
I believe that she did this not for her own benefit. She was probably coaxed or coached into doing something like this to see what the public appetite was and to see
test it in New Mexico. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, let's try this shit in New Mexico. And I don't think it was an accident that it was passed as a health emergency order, right? Because that was the premise that was the context of her order, was that there was a health emergency, which sounds really fucking familiar.
Yep.
And let's see if we can't suspend this thing. What was really encouraging was that I don't think a single law enforcement agency, from the state police to the county, local, nobody even dreamt of enforcing it. They spoke against it, you know, immediately, and people protested openly carrying guns, and there was not a single law enforcement officer that showed up to disperse that crowd. That says a lot. And by the way, New Mexico's blue.
Yeah. I really was entertained by that whole thing. The lunacy. However, I liken it to, do you remember Beto O'Rourke? Being from Texas, you remember this shit.
Yeah.
When he came out and said, hell yeah, we're going to take your AR-15. You know what? I went on the videos and I said, look, this is not him saying, this is not just face value. This is him moving the goalposts, because every time they do something more outlandish, everything else looks less outlandish.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we're not going to take the guns. We're just going to, limit the mags, or we're going to
take the gun first, due process later, right?
Luckily for us, luckily for us in that time period, there were a lot of, I think, dumb things said, but not most of them weren't executed. Thank goodness. And
I agree.
And I'm grateful for some Supreme Court appointments and some other things, right?
But I think it moved us in a good position. I think. Yeah. Go ahead.
I was going to say, so going back to the Beto O'Rourke thing, to put things in perspective, whenever I say that gun control is less popular now than I think it's ever been politically, at least as far as the will of the people. So Beto O'Rourke's, one of his major campaign positions was banning guns, specifically the AR-15s, banning AR-15s in massive gun control.
Okay.
Right? Beto O'Rourke ran for governor here in Texas, and this was I think 6 or 8 months.
Didn't he do it twice?
Well, this last run when he ran against Abbott, right? Well, one of his biggest platforms was gun control. This was 6 months after the Uvalde shooting, which is probably one of the most horrific events I can remember in my lifetime. This is less than an hour from my house. Okay. But to put things in perspective, he lost Uvalde by 30 something points. I think like 38 points. So here's this tiny little county and city in town of Uvalde that was just rocked by one of the worst tragedies involving a gun in my lifetime. Okay. And he lost by almost 40 points in Uvalde. Everybody in that city knew somebody who was affected. Okay. But that kind of gives you an idea of what the political will for actual gun control is, because he didn't even fucking come close.
So with that in mind, you're saying that now the gun control will start to happen where it is not necessarily protected by law, and we are going to have to fight tooth and nail through businesses.
I mean, think about it. There's like 2 companies that will insure gun manufacturers for liability insurance. And remember, we're protected by the Lawful Commerce and Arms Act. So, I mean, at least for right now, there are states that are trying to chip away at that. You might actually see gun companies stop shipping guns to certain states because those states could try some frivolous lawsuit bullshit. And for us, how many lawsuits can you defend at the same time, right? You can't.
We as a community don't have the pockets for it.
No,
and they know that because they have our money.
No, look, dude. The lobbying budget for guns, which is virtually the NRA's the lion's share of it, the lobbying budget for guns is like $5 million a year.
Yeah, it's
not the lobbying budget for like oil and gas is 500 million. For pharmaceuticals, it's hundreds of millions. For education, hundreds of millions. Insurance companies, hundreds of millions. Like, the gun lobby is a fucking drop in the bucket. In terms of dollars spent, there is no concentration of wealth in the gun industry. The only billionaire that I can think of that actually made their wealth from guns is Gaston Glock, and I think he's like number 2000 or something on the list of billionaires. There is no collection of wealth in our, not compared to pharma and
right.
tech and that kind of shit. So yeah, I mean, there's like about 2 companies right now that will insure us. My fear is Michael Bloomberg spends a few $100 million a year on every town and some of this stuff. Like, why doesn't he just fucking buy them? That's the stuff that I think about.
Right.
Why doesn't he just acquire those insurance companies? You know?
I mean, in theory, it's totally possible. In theory.
Oh, in theory. Yeah. I mean, thankfully we have capitalism and somebody would stand up something and hopefully like that would be the solution to it. But I mean, it is kind of a scary deal. I do worry about our ability to transact. We had a pallet of UPS made a temporary change. Do you remember whenever UPS decided to stop shipping like gun
Sure
parts?
do.
And there was like a several day like debate internally with what they were going to do. We had a pallet sitting at a fucking hub that we were concerned they might actually destroy. So what happened? Oh yeah. Yeah, this was UPS. FedEx and UPS both have some very restrictive internal policies for shipping guns. So what I'm saying is, what happens when those guys, you know, what the fuck do you do? I mean, you know,
I don't know. Fire up the Pony Express, I guess. I don't know, man. Like what?
Also, I'll be pulling a trailer, just making
Look,
them
I've
around.
got a big cargo van. We're gonna drive to Texas and ship your guns. It'll take a little longer, and gas is expensive, so you might have to pay a little more. Jesus Christ, you got me like depressed now. Like, good God, like
No,
it's like we're doing great and we're doing scary bad at the same time, you know?
No, listen, my message here isn't like to depress people or to scare people. It really is to stay vigilant. And it is and I know this. I spend my money with places that don't hate me. And so I do think that there's almost two economies starting, you know, and again, I think guns is a pretty decent litmus test for where certain things are. And I'm not trying to depress anybody. I hope is not lost. I definitely think people should be vigilant though about that, and you know that it's certainly something to keep an eye on.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to ask you one more question.
Yeah.
What should people be doing to fight back?
So I'm not going to ever go out and tell somebody who to vote for. That's not my thing, and I've made the mistake I think of endorsing some things. Yeah, maybe I shouldn't have. You know, I look at some of those things. What I will say is that it's not political to support litigation, though. Okay, it is not. You know, so if you're donating to people, to organizations that are bringing this litigation to bear, that's not a vote for a party. You're funding the litigation for the defense of a right, and that is absolutely nonpartisan, in my opinion. So if you're a left leaning person and you can't bring yourself to vote right, well, you can still fund litigation that supports gun rights, if that's that's what something you believe.
Also, if you're a
Also,
left-leaning person and you're listening to this podcast, please shoot me an email, theguncollective@gmail.com. I just want to say hi because you're a unicorn.
hey man, I'm telling you, the demographic has certainly changed. I don't know if it would matter, anyways. But as far as what people can do, support, support the organizations that are actually out there doing the work and doing the fight, and committing the fight. Support local too. Like some of the, some of these local mom and pop shops, they've had a really tough year. If you can, any chance you can, like to go in and support your local shops. Go
do it.
Go do it, because if we lose that brick and mortar in that town, well, who's going to do the fucking transfer?
You can't come to my house. Mike, I really appreciate your time tonight. I think we covered a lot of ground, and it's really cool for me to not only learn about where your company has come from and where you're at, but also kind of get to know your perspective on the world right now. I think that's pretty cool. So I appreciate it, man.
Hey, dude, I've been a big fan. I love everything you put out. It's always very tempered, measured. And the one thing I can say about you is that it's accurate. when I listen to you speak and I hear like whenever you're trying to convey facts to the audience, you have put some thought into the accuracy of that, and it's straightforward. And man, I am grateful for what you're doing for the whole fucking thing, dude.
That means a lot to me, man. Thank you. Like, thanks for giving a shit. Like, really, that's what I like to say. Like, thank you for giving a shit that and paying attention, because that's not always the case. But thank you to those out there listening and watching. Thank you guys for giving a shit about this podcast and listening. Be sure to check out blackoutcoffee.com/TGC. Go get some coffee. Go get some hot cocoa. Go get some tea. The English breakfast tea is some of my favorite. I shit you not. It's delicious. You will thank me later. Vertex also makes some incredible gear. You got to check them out. They've also now got VTAC gun bags. I've got a whole bunch of them. Their pistol bags, one of my favorite. I use their range bag all the time. The code is TGC. Get yourself a discount over there at Vertex. It's SOLGW, correct?
That's right.
.com. Sons of Liberty Gunworks.com. Go buy a rifle, because you'll need one to be the top tier in your collection. I promise you guys need to check that out. Again, Mike, thank you so much. And we'll see you guys next